Hey everyone, welcome to Learn with Oneupweb. My name's Gillian Niemisto, and today we're going to be talking about the anatomy of the SERP. Okay, so before we dive right in, let's talk about what the SERP is. SERP is an industry term that we use as shorthand for search engine results page. I should make a note that today we're going to be using Google as our example. Google's the leader in the industry, and they really are who we derive best practice from. But know that the information we're talking about really would apply to Bing or whatever other search engine you prefer to use. So let's talk about the results page in general. Let's say you're navigating to Google and you want to learn more about the land before time. Piece of cinematic glory that we all probably want to learn a little bit more about. You get to that page and you type in the query or the title or the name, whatever you're choosing to look up. In this case, it's just land before time. You're going to be met with a page of results. Not all of those are just links. You may see images, video, maybe a knowledge panel or a knowledge graph. If you were looking up something else, you might even see maybe a local pack if you were looking up a local store. This SERP is designed to meet the user's needs, to help you get the information you need quickly, and in a lot of cases without even actually navigating to a web page. Google is constantly tinkering, coming up with new ways to deliver that information. And because of that, the SERP is always changing, and it means that we're always learning something new as content marketers. So, diving right in, what are the things that you should expect to see, and how do we make sure that the content that we're producing shows up in those places? One of our favorite things about the SERP are featured snippets. Featured snippets highlight a piece of information from a website as the best source of information about a query, or in some cases, the answer to something like a how-to question or a what is question. For example, how to tie a tie is something that Google can identify these really quick or this really good explanation of how to tie a tie that is a numbered list that walks a user through how to tie their tie. And they pull that from a website and put it smack dab at the top of the page, right below the box where you typed the query in and above the other organic search results. In this case, that is also referred to as position 0 because, again, it appears before those other organic search results, but it is a featured snippet. As content marketers, we're always trying to optimize for that featured snippet because it puts you at the top of the list, and it means that your content is more likely to be clicked on. There's a caveat to that. Sometimes your user may not need to actually click into your website because you had the featured snippet. That is not always the case, and we still always think that it's important to optimize and aim for that featured snippet because we know that you're more likely to get clicked on if you're the first in the SERP, but we also know that Google's trying to help people get the information they need as fast as possible. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword there, but we love them nonetheless. Featured snippets are also really important because let's say someone's doing a voice search, they're talking into their phone. That piece of information is what is most likely to be read off to that user for their query. So featured snippets are really vital to the work that we do and to helping users get that information they need. There are different ways to help optimize for featured snippets. Best practices that we've found are to make sure that we're targeting the keywords that we actually think are going to be in that query. So if it's a how-to query, we want to make sure our headers on our website that we include a how-to header and oftentimes put that right in the H1. We also want to make sure that right below that H1, we're actually answering that question. Long form content is really important to websites and it's valuable, but if we can answer that question right away first and then dive into the details, we're much more likely to obtain that featured snippet. Also, we want to make sure that that answer that's right below that H1 is really only 40 to 50 words long, and if possible includes instructions, whether they be bullet points or a numbered list, something that breaks up the content and makes it easy for users to read and understand. Google wants users to be satisfied with the answers that they're getting, and that means giving them something that's digestible and that it's really easy for them to take action with. Another thing you may see in the SERP is called a rich answer. A rich answer is going to look like a featured snippet, but it is not attributed to anyone. There is no link at the bottom of a rich answer to click in for more information. That is because these are things that Google sort of considers to be public domain or to be common knowledge in some way, and so they don't attribute it to a particular website or organization. So, for example, the one we have here listed is how deep is the Grand Canyon? That is considered a public domain question, and they're not going to attribute that to any website that has information about how deep the Grand Canyon is. Okay, let's talk about the local pack. The local pack is a listing of local businesses in an area. So for example, we live outside of Traverse City, and we're going to talk about breweries because we're known as one of the beer capitals of the United States. We have a lot of micro and small breweries here, craft breweries, and we're looking to go to one tonight. So I'm on Google, I type in Traverse City breweries, and I am met with a map and a list of breweries that are in the area. Google populates this list by your Google My Business listing. So if you work for or own a small business, please make sure your Google My Business listing is up to date. It's so important to getting customers in your door. There are other ranking factors that Google uses for this, chief among them location, but really it's so important to have that there to ask your clients for reviews on Google My Business and to make sure your location and your hours are accurate. This local pack takes into consider reviews, Google My Business profile factors, and other sort of ranking signals. And it's so important to making sure that you're getting people through your door. Okay, next feature, reviews in the SERP. You can actually use schema markup via your developer or sometimes using the data highlighter that Google provides to have reviews of your business and your products show up in the SERP. Cool, right? This is really valuable because when people leave you a great review and then that's showing up in the search results alongside of your actual product or your actual website, it adds more credence to what you're doing, and it means you're more likely to get people to, again, click into your website. The more space you can take up on that SERP between reviews, the local pack, your actual listing, maybe a featured snippet, the better off you will be. Next up, the most common, the thing we probably all think of when we think about the SERP, site links. They're most often available when a user conducts a branded search. So for example, if you were looking for Oneupweb, probably the first result you're going to get is our website, our meta description, and then some links that help you get further into our site. The best way to get those site links to populate is to have a really effective hierarchy for your website so that Google understands what's important and where you're trying to drive people to. Image results. The big thing here, you do not have to type in big fluffy dog images to be provided with many images of big fluffy dogs. This is this is a newer feature. You used to have to actually look for images when you were looking for these results, but Google now gives images right within the SERP for many of the queries that are searched for. You can help get your images into the SERP by making sure that they're optimized well. So we're talking alt text and all those goodies. But you should also know that images typically have a low click-through rate because clicking on the image takes the user to the full image results, not the website where the photo lives. To do that, you got to take a couple more clicks. But again, if you have great imagery and you want it to show up right away and you think that that's a great way to get your brand out there, make sure that your images are optimized really well. Next, the knowledge panel. The knowledge panel is going to appear to the right of search results on the page. So this typically happens for things that are like places, famous people, or large brands. A lot of this information is usually populated from a Wikipedia page or another well-known big source. And again, it's most often seen for these places or these people or these things that are like really, really popular and in some case sort of common queries or common knowledge. Next, we're going to talk about the knowledge graph. Similar to the knowledge panel, or similar at least in look and feel, the knowledge graph is different from a knowledge panel in that it's always highlighting a local business and it's always going to include that information from a Google My Business listing. So another part of the SERP that really relies on your Google My Business account. All right, finally, Google Ads. It's no secret. We all, or a lot of us do it. We advertise on Google. If there are ads that are targeting the types of queries that you are typing in to Google, you're going to see those ads before you see a single organic search result. So for example, if you type in best mattress, you're going to be hit with mattress ads for many different mattress companies before you see a single organic search result. This is just sort of the space that we live in. We encourage a lot of brands that we work with to take advantage of paid ads, paid advertising when it makes sense for them. This is not to say that organic is not important, because there's a lot of people who skip past all the ads to get to organic search results. And for the different queries are going to give you different results. You may be looking for best mattresses in one query. You may be looking for another, mattresses without coils in a different query, and you might get many organic search results. A healthy strategy includes both paid and organic for many businesses, not all, but many businesses. So it's just important to understand that these ads are at the top for some of these queries. They're always clearly marked as ad, so users can understand what is an advertisement versus what is an organic search result. So we've got a couple other SERP features that we'd like to talk about today. One of those being the hotel pack. The hotel pack is a listing, so if you're looking for hotels in a specific location, it's going to come up with a listing of all of those hotels right at the top. It's sort of an aggregator for those types of listings, and it's very similar to one you'll see if you're looking for flights. The same thing happens there with flights. It's another aggregator. Videos in the SERP. We've all been waiting for this day. You don't have to go to YouTube just to find the good puppy videos. Google will give them to you. If you've got a well-optimized video, it's going to show up in the SERP and it's going to be beneficial to your brand. News and top stories. Again, this is something that Google introduced some time ago, and it's a way for Google to make sure that it is providing users with information that are going to be most important to them. So let's say you're talking about, for example, an upcoming election. Google is going to put all of those news source related articles, videos, etc. right at the top of the SERP so that users get the information they're looking for and that is most relevant to them as quickly as possible. Additionally, we have the option of Shop on Google. Depending on what you're looking for, you may see sponsored posts at the top, essentially allowing you to shop for a product before you get further into the SERP, before you click into their website. This is a feature that is most often associated with paid marketing, and it's really valuable for certain brands, and it's really valuable for users who want something right away and can get it with 1 or 2 clicks. Finally, In a lot of cases, if you see a featured snippet, it's going to be closely followed by a people also ask accordion. These are queries that are very similar to what a user has typed in, and we're providing them with those answers, those queries and those answers to see if that is provides them with additional information or maybe is a more direct answer to what they're actually looking for. Again, it's all about matching user intent to your information, and we know that we're not going to, Google understands that they're not going to get it right 100% of the time, so this people also ask section is good because it provides additional information and it might actually get closer to what the user intended. At the end of the day, Google loves their users and they're doing everything they can to get them the information they need when they need it. And I think that's the sort of the most important takeaway from this is that Google's out to help users, and as marketers, if we use Google's best practices, we're going to do the best by our users, and we're going to do the best by our brands. So if you have any other questions about the SERP, please feel free to reach out to Oneupweb. We're always here to talk and we're always here to learn.